Just minutes ago, Khamzat Chimaev sent shockwaves through the MMA world. The undefeated champion has reportedly stepped away from the UFC and signed on for a massive Netflix event. This isn't speculation or internet gossip. It's a real move that's been building for a long time. After dealing with injuries, contract disputes, and growing tension with Dana White, he's finally made a decision that changes everything. But what really pushed him to this point behind closed doors? At the heart of this story is a simple question: why would a fighter in his position walk away? Think about it. You've got a man who's undefeated, sitting on top as the UFC middleweight champion, with the entire MMA world focused on him. Why leave now? To understand that, you have to look at where Khamzat Chimaev stands today. He captured the middleweight title at UFC 319 in 2025. His record sits at a perfect 13-0. On most scorecards, he hasn't even lost a round. He's dominant. He's at the peak. And yet, right after that championship victory, the cameras picked up a moment. Something subtle, but revealing, that hinted at the tension bubbling beneath the surface.
But sorry for Dana White, so he likes finishes, but I tried last seconds, but make mistake.
Right after winning the belt, his first reaction wasn't celebration. It was an apology to the man who pays him. Not joy, not relief, an apology. Think about that for a second. This is a moment most fighters never reach. He's standing there with the title in his hands, and instead of soaking it in, he's telling Dana White he's sorry the fight didn't end the way it was expected to. That single moment says a lot. Captures the pressure, the expectations, and everything going on beneath the surface. Because this isn't just about one fight. This is about a fighter who has pushed his body to the limit, battled through serious health issues, dealt with tension at the top of the promotion, and now sees an entirely different opportunity opening up. One that the UFC has never really offered him: control on his own terms. And that opportunity is coming from Netflix. In May 2026, Netflix is set to host a live MMA event featuring names like Nate Diaz vs. Mike Perry and Ronda Rousey vs. Gina Carano. It's being promoted by Most Valuable Promotions, and it sits completely outside the UFC system. No standard restrictions. No tight branding rules. Fighters can secure their own sponsorships, negotiate their own deals, and avoid the usual media obligations that come with being under the UFC banner. Even more interesting, fighters like Mike Perry have already said this Netflix fight will be the biggest payday of their entire careers. Not just their UFC careers, their entire time in combat sports. Now imagine adding Khamzat Chimaev to that lineup. He's undefeated. He's got a global fan base stretching from Chechnya to Sweden, across the Middle East, and into the US. He's already locked into a UFC deal reportedly worth over $20 million across 7 fights. On paper, that sounds massive, like the kind of number that should end any debate. But clearly, for him, it doesn't. When he was asked about chasing more belts, defending his title, moving across weight classes, his response was simple: "I need money, bro." That's not a satisfied champion talking. That's someone calculating his value. And when you really break it down, the forces pushing Chimaev towards something like Netflix aren't vague or theoretical. They're real, and they're stacking up all at once. His body, his finances, his relationship with the boss. And the options now on the table. Start with his body. Over the past few years, he's gone through 5 or 6 surgeries and suffered multiple fractures. He was hospitalized with COVID-19. He had part of his thyroid removed. There have been fight cancellations due to fevers, immune system issues, and illnesses that were never fully explained publicly. This isn't just wear and tear. This is a fighter carrying serious medical history while still being expected to defend a title regularly. Then there's the financial side. That $20 million deal sounds huge, until you break it down. Split across 7 fights, then factor in training camps, coaches, management cuts, taxes, and the physical toll required to even get to fight night. The reality starts to look different. And then comes the relationship with Dana White. There's been friction. Public disagreements. At one point, Chimaev openly accused the UFC president of not delivering on a promised title shot. He's pushed back against explanations about his inactivity. And there have been booking decisions that even Dana himself admitted wouldn't have happened to other fighters. Finally, the options. Right now, there's a streaming platform with over 300 million subscribers offering massive guaranteed payouts and full freedom, something the UFC model simply doesn't match. This isn't one issue. It's 4 major pressures hitting at the same time. And each one alone has been enough to drive fighters away in the past. So when all of them come together around one undefeated champion, the question isn't, why would he leave? It becomes, what would actually convince him to stay? Each of these factors deserves a closer look, and we're starting with the one he feels every single day, the physical toll. Because if you want to understand why Khamzat Chimaev might trade multiple UFC title defenses for one massive Netflix event, you have to look at what this sport has already taken from his body. This isn't hypothetical. It's documented. Back in 2021, COVID-19 hit him hard, bad enough to land him in the hospital and affect his lungs. For a fighter whose style relies on relentless pressure and cardio, that's not a small issue. That's a serious threat to everything that makes him effective. And it didn't stop there. In June 2024, he had to pull out of a major fight with Robert Whittaker due to an illness that was never fully explained. Then came news that he'd undergone surgery to remove part of his thyroid, something far beyond normal fight-related injuries. When Chimaev himself talked about it, the numbers were shocking. Multiple surgeries, several fractures, all within just a few years. And on top of that, he's admitted that intense training may have weakened his immune system, the very process that made him dominant also wearing him down from the inside. The pattern became impossible to ignore. Fight cancellations, health scares, training interruptions. At one point, even reports of him coughing up blood during recovery. Every time a fight gets canceled, it costs more than money. It shifts perception. Suddenly, the narrative isn't about dominance, it's about reliability. And inside the UFC, that matters a lot. The system demands activity. Constant camps, constant promotion, constant performance. But for a fighter with Chimaev's style, heavy wrestling, non-stop pressure, that cycle only speeds up the damage instead of allowing recovery. That's where the Netflix model starts to look very different. Instead of multiple fights a year, it's one big event. One camp, one performance, and then real recovery time. Fewer fights, bigger paydays, less long-term damage. And for someone whose body has already been through this much, that trade-off becomes hard to ignore. He's even hinted before that his career path has been unpredictable because of health issues. Every training camp becomes a risk. Every weight cut adds more strain, especially dropping down to 185 pounds from a naturally higher weight. At that point, it's not just about competition. It's about sustainability. The retirement talk that surfaced after his title win didn't come out of nowhere. People saw the pattern. An elite-level fighter, with a body that keeps raising warning signs. And when you look at it like that, the choice starts to make more sense. Defend the belt over and over, pushing through camps, cuts, and damage. Or take one massive fight, one massive check, perform on a global stage, and then actually have time to recover and decide what comes next. Then comes the money. The UFC's pay structure has been debated for years, and for someone in Chimaev's position, undefeated, champion, globally recognized, it's a serious question whether the system truly reflects his value. Yes, the contract is big, but the structure behind it? That's where things get complicated. Because UFC pay still depends heavily on pay-per-view performance, which brings in variables fighters can't control. The strength of the card, the promotion behind it, timing, everything affects the final number. Now compare that to Netflix. No pay-per-view, no guesswork, just guaranteed money, negotiated upfront. And then there's sponsorship freedom. Inside the UFC, branding is tightly controlled. Outside of it, fighters can bring in their own deals, their own sponsors, and maximize their personal brand. We've already seen others take that route. Francis Ngannou turned his exit into massive paydays in boxing and with the PFL. Nate Diaz stepped away and found new opportunities beyond UFC restrictions. These aren't hypotheticals anymore, they're real examples. And for Chimaev, whose global reach is massive, the upside could be even bigger. fewer fights, more control, bigger guaranteed earnings. It's simple math. And if he's already saying the money isn't enough, then you know he's already running those numbers. But beyond money, there's something else shaping this situation, something more personal. His relationship with Dana White. That tension didn't appear overnight. It's been building for years. In early 2024, Chimaev publicly expressed frustration over a title shot he believed was promised to him but never delivered. He didn't stay quiet about it either, he called it out directly. That's a bold move in a sport where the promoter controls everything from matchmaking to opportunities. And it didn't stop there. There were disagreements over why he wasn't fighting. Dana White suggested it was personal issues. Chimaev pushed back, saying he was ready and had completed full training camps. Considering everything we now know about his health at the time, that disconnect becomes even more significant. From his perspective, he was dealing with real physical issues, while the narrative publicly shifted in another direction. That kind of situation doesn't just go away. It builds. And even though things may look professional on the surface now, moments like apologizing after a title win suggest that tension never fully disappeared.
That boy is always saying, bro, it will be good for us if you go 5 rounds or for the next fight.
That moment says more than it seems at first glance. It shows a fighter who isn't fully in the present. Someone who's already looking ahead, already adjusting himself to meet expectations that don't completely belong to him.
So we're gonna have, that makes us better fighter today. So happy, that's happy.
And beneath that moment of celebration, there's still that apology to Dana White. A small gesture, but one that says a lot about how much influence the power dynamic has over every interaction between a champion and the promotion that controls his contract. Because smoothing things over isn't the same as fixing what caused the tension in the first place. The accusations about a broken promise, the disagreement over why he wasn't fighting, the inconsistent booking decisions early on, those don't just disappear because of a handshake backstage. They're part of a larger pattern. And that pattern shows that Chimaev isn't afraid to push back when he feels like something isn't fair. And that mindset matters. Because when a fighter like that is suddenly presented with an option that removes the middleman entirely, it becomes very real. The Netflix model, backed by most valuable promotions, offers something completely different. Direct deals, no executive interference, and full control over how a fighter presents himself. It's basically the opposite of everything that created friction between him and Dana White in the first place. And for someone who's already experienced those issues firsthand, that difference stands out. Now, all of these factors, the injuries, the money concerns, the tension with management, they only matter if there's a better alternative out there. For a long time, there wasn't. Now there is. Netflix has stepped into the space, and the opportunity is wide open. The May 2026 MMA event isn't some small promotion trying to compete with the UFC. This is a globally streamed event with access to over 300 million subscribers. No pay-per-view barrier. No regional limits. A fighter stepping onto that stage isn't performing for a few 100,000 buys, they're potentially in front of an audience that rivals the biggest events in sports. For someone like Chimaev, whose popularity already spans multiple regions and cultures, that kind of exposure isn't just bigger, it's game-changing. And the names on that card prove the direction this is going. Nate Diaz versus Mike Perry. Ronda Rousey versus Gina Carano. These are fighters with mainstream appeal, people who reach beyond hardcore MMA fans. The entire event is being built with crossover attention in mind, backed by high-level production and global distribution. Now imagine Chimaev added to that mix. An undefeated champion, highlight reel finishes, a unique background, and a massive international following. He wouldn't just fit into that event, he could elevate it entirely, while also expanding his own brand far beyond what another title defense might offer. But it's not just about visibility. The real appeal is how perfectly this model addresses the exact issues he's faced in the UFC. First, there's freedom. UFC contracts are known for being restrictive. Fighters are locked in, sponsorships are limited, and outside opportunities are tightly controlled. We've already seen fighters like Nate Diaz and Francis Ngannou walk away from that system, not because they couldn't compete, but because they wanted control over their own careers. And they found it. For Chimaev, that kind of freedom could unlock entirely new revenue streams, endorsements, business ventures, media opportunities, things that are much harder to fully capitalize on under UFC restrictions. Then there's the schedule. The UFC expects champions to stay active. Regular fight camps, frequent defenses, constant promotion. For a healthy fighter, that's manageable. But for someone with Chimaev's medical history, it's a different story. Multiple surgeries, fractures, immune system issues, a thyroid procedure. That kind of workload isn't just demanding, it's risky. Every camp pushes the body. Every weight cut adds stress. Every fight comes with uncertainty. The Netflix approach flips that completely. One fight, one massive payday, one global event, and then time, real recovery time, without pressure to jump straight back into another camp. For a fighter whose career has already been disrupted by health issues, that kind of structure isn't just appealing, it might be necessary. Chimaev himself has talked about how unpredictable his journey has been. How injuries and illness have changed his plans again and again. The retirement rumors after his title win didn't come out of nowhere. They came from people seeing the same pattern. A world-class fighter, dealing with a body that keeps sending warning signs. That's not a comfortable position. That's someone constantly evaluating what comes next. And right now, the options outside the UFC have never been stronger. Netflix is offering massive guaranteed paydays. Global exposure without limits. A system that removes the very issues he's had with the UFC. No gatekeeping, no conflicting narratives, no restrictions on how he builds his brand. And maybe most importantly, a pace that actually gives his body a chance to recover. So whether Chimaev makes that move or not comes down to timing, negotiations, and his own personal decision. But one thing is clear. That door is real. It's open. And every factor in his career right now, the physical toll, the financial questions, the tension with leadership, and the emergence of a platform that solves all three, is pointing straight toward it. The only thing left to see is whether Khamzat Chimaev decides to walk through. That's it for this video. If you want more deep dives like this, check out the next videos on your screen.